Good morning and welcome to the Real Life Academy podcast. I am your host, Marcus Moore, and today we are going to be discussing something that's very important for a lot of people to understand. We are going to be talking about personality disorders. What is one? Where does it come from? How do we diagnose it? And what does it mean for you? Maybe you suffer from a personality disorder. You feel like you're suffering. We're going to talk about that. Or maybe you know someone who experiences a personality disorder. That's perfectly fine. This is going to be the perfect episode for you. For those of you that maybe don't have personality disorders, you're guaranteed to know someone who has experienced this or is currently experiencing this. And so we want to talk about some of the tools and tricks and tips and things that we can do to kind of make sense of it. And with that being said, let's get into the good stuff. So your personality is unique in a lot of different ways, okay? And it's made up of 7 key characteristics and behaviors that are adapted to fit the mold of who you are as a person, okay? And this includes things like your traits, interests, your drives, values, your self-concept, your abilities, and your emotional patterns. All of these play a key role in how other people perceive you and how you perceive them. So when we think about personality disorders, we often focus on labels like narcissism, BPD, and obsessive compulsive disorder. But you might be shocked to know there's actually more than 20 different ways that your personality can deviate from the norm, and it's all based on a number of factors. So to make things easier to understand, psychologists have grouped all of these traits into what they call clusters, okay? And there's 3 in total. There's cluster A, cluster B, and cluster C. Okay. Now, when we're talking about people in cluster A, these are people who have a difficulty relating to others. Okay. They usually show patterns of behavior that most people find odd or eccentric. It's like living in a fantasy world all of their own. Now, in cluster B, it's a little bit different, right? We have people who struggle to regulate their feelings. Now, this can often swing between positive and negative views about themselves or maybe other people around them. This is a very common cluster for people to have a diagnosis with, and their behavior may be described as dramatic, unpredictable, or in some cases, it's even disturbing, right? Now, this is a lot different from someone with a cluster C personality disorder. These people struggle with a persistent and overwhelming fear of anxiety, and their behavior is often viewed as antisocial and withdrawn. Now, to be classified as a personality disorder, right? What is it? How do we classify it? 3 things need to happen. First off, the way you think, the way you feel, or the way that you behave needs to deviate from the expectations of a culture or an established norm. Number 2, the issue at hand must cause some level of distress or some kind of problems functioning, and the issue must persist for an extended period of time. It needs to be measurable. So what exactly is a disorder? Let's start there. So the Oxford Dictionary defines a disorder as a state of confusion, right? That's the first one. The second is a disruption of the systematic functioning or neat arrangement of XYZ. So what does that mean? Well, to better understand this, we need to operationally define each of these words. Okay, and that's a fancy way of saying we want to find a concrete, justifiable way to understand what something is or how it works. Okay, that's an operational definition. So let's take a look at the difference between a disorder and, say, a disease. Okay. So a disease is involuntary, okay? It's a biological response that negatively affects the structure or the function of an organism, okay? This is something you have no control over. There is a chance of recovery, but it's up to your unique biological makeup to determine if recovery is possible and then to what degree it is possible, okay? It's up to your unique biological makeup to determine that. This is why some people recover from a disease while others succumb to a disease. It's largely out of your control. Okay. A disorder, on the other hand, is the disruption of a natural process, and it's mainly voluntary. However, there are specific biological processes that can make recovery more difficult. And I know I'm going to be vilified. Okay. They're going to crucify me for saying this, but disorders are mainly voluntary, and we're going to talk about it. Okay? Think of it like playing a video game. When you turn on the screen to start the game, you get to choose between normal, hard, and easy mode. Okay? So for people who experience a disorder, it's going to feel like you might shift between normal and hard mode, always trying to learn the game and then telling yourself it shouldn't be this hard, right? How many of you say, I know people are just like, yep, that's me. So you may feel like the rest of the world is playing on easy mode when in reality, you're both playing the same game. You just have to work a little harder if you want to get good at it. Another way to look at a disorder is to think of a kid's room where the floor is covered with toys. Now, we understand that toys don't go on the floor, right? It's drilled into us as a kid. Don't leave your toys on the floor, put them up. We know they go in the toy box or on the shelf, right? Some children understand those expectations and they naturally pick those toys up. They put them back in the toy box. On the other hand, some children need to be told that to put their toys away multiple times before they actually do it. So as you can imagine, this can go on for quite some time if the child forgets or if no one intervenes. Now, this behavior tends to deviate from what is expected. And in addition to this, it can cause distress for the family if they have to tell the child multiple times and if it's causing issues in the dynamic of that family. And lastly, if the behavior continues despite you reminding them, setting boundaries, or making notes, this can theoretically be classified as a disorder. And our personalities are really no different. As a society, we have certain cultures and expectations that need to be met for people to communicate and socialize in a way that's productive and growth-oriented. That's why we diagnose this. That's why we work with people in treatment, is to help them catch up to speed. Think of it like a personal trainer, but for your brain, right? So going back to our example, while this child may be experiencing some level of a disorder, there's nothing inherently wrong with the child themselves. They simply learn in a different way at a different speed than other children. They may go against the social grain, but with the right guidance, they can learn to correct those patterns and one day have the chance to develop right alongside their peers. People are capable of incredible change, you included. Regardless of the diagnosis, you need to remind yourself that if you experience a disorder or you live with someone or you know someone that's been diagnosed with a disorder, they've been given the unique opportunity to learn and develop their skills in their own way. And while it may prove to be a little more difficult, right? Sometimes it's not the easiest thing to do. A little hard work has never hurt anybody. And in the end, it's always worth it. So with that being said, I want to leave you with this. If you're experiencing that disorder and maybe you need someone to reach out to, right? You need someone to talk with and kind of help you stay on track to get where you need to be. Listen, go take the assessment. It's free of charge. It costs you nothing at all. Reach out to us on Facebook, Instagram. You can hit us directly on www.relifeacademy.com. You can do the intake assessment. It costs you absolutely nothing. We have a 24/7 coach line that you can text and talk with a coach, even if you don't have the money for a coach. Okay? We do everything that we do to help you get to a point to where you can learn to overcome a lot of these social issues and emotional issues in a way that's productive. Okay? So reach out to us, let us know. And with that being said, I hope you have a wonderful day and we'll see you on the next episode.